like, she's going to laugh at my Excel document.
That's a huge statement.
Why couldn't Ainsley do bowling?
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast. Episode 60. Wow. 60. You didn't think we'd ever get here, did you?
No.
And for all of our listeners that know this question answer, how many of the 60 have you listened to, Joe?
0.
Yeah, he prides himself on that almost.
I guess you could say I've listened to all 60 because I hear them live, I guess, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I'm never picking on you when I ask you that question. I just, to me, the person who's live and then edits and then uploads, I don't know that I've listened to all 60 like once it's uploaded, or all 59, but I definitely have listened to episodes with people and been in the presence of them. And there was 2 that I've actually gone back and listened to because I felt like I needed to hear it again.
Yeah, there's a famous actor. I don't know why like De Niro or Pacino come to mind, but like one of them, it's like I've never watched one of my films.
Yeah.
No, like I lived it for 6 months or however long. Like I don't need to. Yeah. 6 months is in no comparison to 60 minutes, but yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, like the other part of the equation is I make content, I don't consume it. I've heard that. Gary Vee says that. You know, he's known for his content creation and kind of his messages out there. And I remember I used to listen to him, 10, 12 years ago. And he said that. I don't consume content, I make it. I'm like, it seems a little chauvinistic or conceited, but then it doesn't. I don't know. It's different. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't think it's that in today's age. Maybe 15 plus years ago, but
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, 2026 is on us. We haven't had this, our first episode of the year, so excited to jump into this. We've had a couple of episodes that have kind of touched on the topic of adoption and fostering and that whole world of just people's journeys, both with Craig McDaniel back in episode 12. And then, of course, Tanya talked about her adoption journey in episode 24. But by way of like just setting the stage, like the evolution of adoption is noteworthy, frankly, for America, notably. There was a time back in, years ago, many decades ago, where a New York was a congressman. What was his name? He basically, Michael Dukakis, 1976. I was just being born, and Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis adopted Adoption Week for his state, and it became really popular. It became so popular that Ronald Reagan, when president, initiated a National Adoption Week in 1984. And due to state celebrations and awarenesses that adoption was receiving, President Bill Clinton proclaimed National Adoption Month in 1995. And to get that level of, I guess, political or leader interest highlights how much of an importance this is. And each president since Bill Clinton has continued to proclaim November National Adoption Month, to include Donald Trump doing that last November. I say all that and then I say it's not November, but it doesn't matter, because ultimately, like, making awareness of stories and journeys don't need a specific day, week, or month. And I did see your response there to the years tied to those proclamations. My birth year and your birth year there. But so with that said, I've been wanting to get Jana Rugg on the episode for some time, because I first learned of her story over dinner in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with her and her husband a few years back, and didn't have a clue about it. Even though it was out there in the interwebs, I just didn't know about that element of her journey. And she's told the story a few times, but she's never been on a podcast before. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, friends, angels, leaders, welcome Jana Rugg to episode 60 of the Together We Shall podcast.
Thank you, Rooster. And it's pretty cool that this is the 60th podcast, because I just turned 60 in November.
How about
happening.
That? It brings it all together.
Yes, none of which was rehearsed, planned, or discussed. And we didn't seek you because of your 60th birthday, because if I'm being very blunt and honest, I don't believe you.
Yeah, same. Same.
I don't either. I think they lied on my birth certificate. I can't possibly be 60. I don't feel 60. It feels weird to even say it. I feel like I'm lying.
Yeah. Well, you just set us up for a beautiful segue. So 60 years ago, this past November, you were born, and there's like a story you want to tell us about that. I'm happy to jump in because I'm going to have a bunch of questions along the way, and Joe's going to try to keep me on track here. But I don't know, like 60 years ago, this last November, Jana was born. Go.
Well, so yes, I was born and I was adopted at birth through an adoption agency in Oklahoma City. Um, I was adopted by two wonderful people who had not been able to conceive a child on their own and wanted children. And they had already adopted my brother when they lived in California. And then when they had come back to Oklahoma, they put in for a little boy. And then they got a phone call that there was a little girl, and they said, okay, we'll take her. And they went to Oklahoma City and picked me up. So I think I was adopted about 6 weeks after I was born at an Unwed Mothers home.
Wow.
And my parents always told me that I was adopted. There was never a moment that I remember learning that I was adopted. And in fact, my parents presented the idea that I was adopted to me in such a positive way that I kind of thought I was a little bit better than everybody else when I was little bitty, because I thought my parents like got to go in a store and like pick the baby they wanted, and all my other friends just kind of got who they got. And so it really did give me a good, confident, positive feeling about being adopted from the beginning, to be told that I was picked.
Hmm.
So
we
I
want to
grew
ask
up
questions. We want to ask so many questions and make so many comments, but it's like, good gosh, there's so many places to go with that. That's cool. All of it's so cool. Joe, what
It
are you
is
thinking?
cool. I was blessed. I was blessed with wonderful, wonderful parents. But unfortunately, they had a lot of health issues, and probably the reasons that they couldn't have children in the first place, is they both had a lot of health problems. My dad was a type 1 diabetic, and by the time I was in third grade, he was blind and had lost a limb. And then he went through another amputation, a kidney failure, dialysis for 8 years. He died when, like 2 weeks before my high school graduation. And so most of my growing up years, I was really a caregiver, along with my mom, who also had a lot of her own health issues.
Goodness gracious. I didn't know that element of it at all.
That
Joe.
is really what like brought me to Ainsley's Angels. That's really why when I found out about Ainsley's Angels, I was like, because growing up with a disabled father who's blind, has one leg, and doesn't look like anybody else's father, you get stared at. You like, I felt different. I felt like my family's different than everybody else's family. And so I can really relate to how people with disabilities and people who are taking care of people with disabilities, how sometimes the public can make them feel. And that's why Ainsley's Angels was such a draw for me when I discovered it.
Where'd you grow up? Like what city? Oklahoma
In Tulsa.
City? In Tulsa.
In
So
Tulsa.
the Oklahoma City connection was where you were born, in Unwed Mother's home. Now, is this a home for unwed mothers, or was this the unwed mother that is your biological mother? Or
It
both?
was called Deaconess Home for Unwed Mothers
Okay.
back in the day. And then it changed to Deaconess Home of Redeeming Love. And it was a Christian adoption agency. And I found out, like, as you know, many, many years later, I found my biological parents. And when I did, I found out that my birth mother, literally, when she found out she was pregnant, she was in college and 19, and the father did not want to get married, so she thought of adoption. And she looked in the phone book. They were going to school in Bowling Green. That's Kentucky, right? Bowling Green, Kentucky. She looked in the phone book, and the first under adoption agencies. The first one was Deaconess in Oklahoma. And she thought, I don't know anybody in Oklahoma, so I can go there. And she called them and they said, yeah, we have an opening. So she got on the bus and went to Oklahoma to have me. And that's how I ended up in Oklahoma.
Your brother, he's older, correct? And you guys have the
Yes.
same mom and dad?
No, my parents were living in San Diego before they moved to Oklahoma, and they adopted my brother there.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then later when they moved to Oklahoma, they wanted to adopt another.
And when it
And
was
how
all
old
said and
is
done,
he?
they had, go ahead, Joe.
Just the two of us. My brother's 18 months older than me, and it was just the two of us growing up.
The story you're telling about your biological mother hopping on a bus because she came across the name of a thing in the yellow pages where she could go and actually have a child.
Can you
And then
imagine?
she gets, no, I can't. I'm trying to get in that mindset. Like she's 18, 19 years old. I think you said she was in college or
Yeah, she was in college and
1965?
1965, and she fell in love with my birth father, whose name is Jack. Her name's Karen. And when they found out they were pregnant, she was thinking, oh, maybe we'll get married. But Jack was very much, my birth father is the son of a Jewish immigrant fleeing the Holocaust. So like he grew up in New York City as the son of a first generation Jewish family. And there was no way he was dropping out of school and having children that early in his life. So he was just like, I can't, I've got to finish my education and la, la, la. So I think he would have been behind her having an abortion and would have encouraged, and he did encourage that, but she was not okay with doing that. So she wanted to go ahead and have him put me up for adoption. She knew that her parents would not support her because they were very strict and conservative. And so she kept it a secret from everyone until after it was done. Can you imagine? She got on a bus and she came to Oklahoma and she lived at the adoption agency for that last trimester. And they did laundry and ironing and things like that to earn money for the hospital. And then they were given false names and they were told they would be better for them to never see the baby, just have the baby and then go back to your life and pretend it didn't happen. And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah, that's it. I wanted to bring us back to that bus ride because like I don't want to just gloss over that. I mean, if you're listening to this, put yourself in the place of Jana's birth mother, Karen, and what she had to navigate as a young person in 1965. And it's the summer of 65, if I'm doing my math publicly here correctly. The summer of 65 in our nation's history is a pretty interesting chapter. And here she goes. What courage,
Yeah.
and to do it alone. The podcast is Together We Shall. Who was your mom's together in that moment of need? I guess the home that provided the service.
Yes, and she shared with me too that she was really proud that she was one of the few girls at the home who had a boyfriend still, because most of the other girls, it was either a one night stand or the guy, ran away. But in her case, she had a boyfriend who was sending her letters every week and was working as a waiter in that summer and sending her money so she could have some spending money. And so it did give her some, a little bit of feel good, I think, to still have that person supporting her. But she didn't have family or anyone else at that point. It was literally very much something she did on her own, and that I could never be grateful enough for what she did.
And so she, through the second trimester, she stayed in Bowling Green.
Yeah, she stayed in Bowling Green up until that final trimester, and then it was time for her to go.
Where was she from originally?
Originally Arizona, but she was a military daughter and they'd moved around a lot. And at that time, her father was stationed in Bowling Green, and that's why she chose that school.
Yeah.
That's
Another.
But her mother at the time was in St. Louis with her sister, who's deaf and was attending a deaf school uh, in St. Louis. And so, like, that's how come she was able to keep it a complete secret until after it was done. And then she wrote her mother a letter and said, I got pregnant, I had a baby, I gave it up, and we will never speak of it again. I've dropped out of school. And they, this is the crazy thing, they never spoke of it again until I showed up again 48 years later.
Okay. All right. So, wow. Okay. Yeah. Before we get to the day that you showed up, I just, let's talk about your life, through those years as it applies to these wonderful adoptive parents who you spoke of, the disability and the challenges, and the lives that they provided. And how long did they live? I know you mentioned your dad just prior to your senior year. How about your mom? And then kind of taking us up to the point where you said, I want to find my biological parents, maybe. If you can take us through that part of the ride.
Yeah. So after my dad passed away right before I went to college, and then I got through college, and um my mom did not do well. And I think you've had episodes on this, and it's a common thing. Like, being a caretaker is really, really hard on a person, and the stress, and plus, some of her own issues that she had, just really wore my mom down. And actually, when I went off to college that first year, she like didn't leave her house for a year. So I moved back in with my mom and commuted to school for 4 years just to give her some life, because she went from like being a full-time caretaker to having like no purpose. And she did bounce back from that, thank God, and ended up getting a job in the leasing industry, and having a pretty happy life before she passed away, when my daughter was 1. So I got married when I was 25. I have 2 children who are adult kids now, but my daughter, who's 24 now, was 1 year old when my mom passed away of lung cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so after my mom passed away is when it was a pretty tough time for me, and just feeling like like this is so unfair, like that these parents I was given were taken from me so young. So, and that my kids might not have a grandparent. So that's what really drove me to thinking, well, maybe I could search for my biological parents, because then, you never know how that's going to go, but maybe I could have grandparents for my kids. And so I reached out to the adoption agency. Is that what you're wanting?
It is, but I want to put some timelines to this. So I'm doing math here on my little paper, and it sounds like because if your daughter was 1, who's now 24, then you were like 36 or so when your mom died?
Yeah, I was 36.
Okay, but you didn't come to meet and be within the presence of your birth parents until you were 48?
Well, 48 from my birth mom, but when my mom passed away and I was 36, I started thinking about the whole thing, and I went through a lot of self-reflection. I made a huge career change and started my business. Like, I made a lot of changes during that year or so after my mom died, which I think is normal. People really reflect on what's important and where they're spending their time and all of those things. And that's what I did. And I'm so happy that I made the changes I did in my career then. But I also
do you
decided
think, did you make that career shift to the healthcare pharmacy world, do you think, because of your parents and having to care for them growing up? Because that's not what you...
I think I was already in recruiting at that time. And I think I went from realizing I'm working, like, I have 2 young children, and I'm working like 10 to 12-hour days, with including my commute and being gone so much. And I need to, like, I want to focus more on my family, and trying to figure out how I could do that. I got the idea and took action to launch my own recruiting firm. And so it wasn't so much about the space I was recruiting in as it was taking control of my time and becoming an entrepreneur, and setting my own stage for what my work life was going to look like.
If Karen was caring for Jack and Jack was disabled as the way you've described it, what was your adoptive mom and dad, Karen and Jack, doing for a living? And I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay, well, just let me clarify. Karen and Jack are the biological, and the ones that raised me, the adoptive ones, is Betty and Gordon, but it's probably irrelevant. But
It's not irrelevant. It's very significant. Good gosh.
but
So
the
our
ones
listeners
that
are like,
parents
wait,
that,
our listeners need a whiteboard to kind of figure out, who's who in
right?
the zoo. So give us that real fast here as we pause. So Karen is your
My
biological mother.
mother, and Jack is my biological father, and the couple that adopted and that were what I call like my real parents, the ones that raised me, was Betty and Gordon. And Gordon, my father, had his PhD in chemical engineering. He was a brilliant man, and he spent a lot of his, time and energy in getting his education and going to work in the aeronautics industry, and would have had an amazing career had he not gone blind. Back then, when you go blind, you lose your job because there was no ADA, there was no protection, there was no resources for him to do his job. So that's what he was doing before he lost his job. Then we lived on SSI and disability.
Yep.
After that, and my mom took care. My mom was a stay-at-home mom prior to the
How
blindness.
old were they when they adopted you? Betty and Gordon?
They were right about 30 when they adopted us.
The where I was going with that is you're describing like this significant shift in your career when it comes to starting your own business and doing entrepreneurship. And I'm always curious where one gets that drive. And based on the things that I'm hearing so far, like, hello, Karen, just her ability to just buckle down and get on that bus and go handle things herself and be her own person and her own leader, and to do something like that, and the strength and the resolve that she showed, the courage that she showed, I think ties really closely to your decision to be your own boss and start your own business. Thoughts?
I like to think I maybe got some of that from her, for sure. And I certainly got a lot of motivation, from watching my parents trudge through their challenges too. But I'll tell you what it was back then. There was a book by Andy Stanley called Choosing to Cheat. And it was about balance, about work, life, family, social, everything balance.
Yeah.
And it was the most life-changing book I've ever read.
It
Because
sounds like it came to you at a perfect time in your journey too, where you're trying to figure out that 10 to 12 hours, work days, 2 kids, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to take the bull by the horns here and take charge of this. And starting a business isn't easy, and it does take a lot of time, but you can eventually get to a point where you can control how your time's spent.
Yeah. It was never anything I questioned from the beginning. Like it was it's really cool too, because I have to add this, because when my mom passed away, the only possession that she had was the house I grew up in. And she'd been in that house for 30 plus years. And we sold that house for $90,000, which gave me and my brother $45,000 each. And that's the money that I used to launch my business. And I told myself then, I said, Mom, I got 6 months, to get off the ground and going, or I'll put my business suit back on and I'll go back into an office and I'll work for someone else.
Yeah.
And from the very, very first month, it just took off. And I met my goals that first year and I never looked back. It was the best thing I ever did. And I'm always going to be grateful to my mom for that nest egg that let me start it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I also want to say this and put this on record. You mentioned ADA earlier. That's Americans with Disabilities Act of 1991, signed into law by Bill Clinton back then. But I mention it because episode 9, Christy Cormier really digs deep into that with us. And she comes to us from the lens of a caregiver. So episode 9, if you want to hear more about ADA and caregiving and how that shows up together, give episode 9 a chance. So there you are in a point in your journey where you're starting your own business. Eventually, you get to a point where you want to talk to the adoption agency about how do you find who your biological parents were. This, from our math we did earlier, became a 12-year journey from the time you started, I think, thinking about it until the time that you actually met your mom. But
Yep.
bring us through that 12-year journey and some of the highlights of that and what that was like. Because sometimes this stuff is sealed and you can't go and seek out the biological parents. So
Right.
how was your journey?
I think there are still some records that are sealed and that people, can have a challenge with. But I was very lucky that I did have an adoption that was well documented and that my parents had given me the adoption papers from Deaconess. So I knew that that was where I came from. So, and they still existed. So I was able to reach out to that Deaconess Home. It's still called now it's called Deaconess Home. And they were still there, and they had this wonderful woman that was their reunion advocate. And so the way it was done then is I had to pay for her services and fill out some documents, and I had to write a letter to my birth mother. It's funny because I never thought about my birth father. The only one I ever really thought about growing up was that I had a birth mother and that she must think of me every year on my birthday. And I wonder where she is and who she is and all of those things. And I knew, of course, there was a father, but you never know if the father's really in the picture or even knew, right? It's not, you don't know. So I didn't ever give him a lot of thought. So, of course, the first thing I wanted to do was to reach out and see if I could connect with my birth mother. And I was asked by Debbie, the lady at Deaconess, to write a letter to my birth mother. And I did a pretty simple letter just stating like, hey, it's me. I'm good. I don't need a kidney. I don't need money. I don't need a place to live. I don't want anything. I just want to know how I got here and why I ended up, where I did. Or it was a pretty lighthearted letter that I had aimed to be very non-intimidating. And so once all that was done, Debbie said, I'm going to reach out to her. I found her phone number. I'm going to call her. And then she called me back and said, I'm sorry, your birth mother doesn't want to have a reunion.
Wow.
And she said she didn't tell me why. She just said no.
Okay. So
So
you had to
I was
sit
like,
with that.
How long was this since you first reached out to Debbie till you heard no?
I would say it was probably about a month's time between me first reaching out to Debbie and then her getting back to me with paperwork to fill out. And because you have to do a document to like open the record, so that I'm giving permission. Basically, I'm giving permission for my information to be given to the birth parents. She can't just give me their information, but she can give them mine since I signed the paper.
How old
And so
were
that's
you?
how it was approached.
How old were you when this all happened? And I'm asking because I think it can help the listener get some perspective.
Well, I would have been like 38.
Okay. So 38 years old, you have this grand idea. You probably were optimistic. You were probably like,
It never crossed my mind that someone would say no. As a mom, like I thought, she's going to be so excited.
Yeah.
I'm eternally an optimistic person too. So it never ever crossed my mind that she'd say no. That was like, whoa.
But it wasn't a no, right? It was more of a not yet.
No, I mean, initially it was a no, I can't. And again, Debbie called me and she was so sweet. And she's like, I don't know why. She didn't say why. She just said no.
Okay. Was there a but we could reach out to your biological father? Okay.
Now we could reach out to your father. He is listed here on your papers. And she also told me then because she was a bringer together. Reuniter. That was her full-time job, was introducing adoptees to their birth parents and vice versa. So she said, it's often that they say no at first, and then that sinks in and they think about it and they get curious and the scare, the fear goes away and they reach back out. So
So
she's like,
that was the
give it
not
some
yet
time.
portion, the not yet portion of what Joe's talking about. Like they
Yeah.
didn't formally say, like your mom didn't say, your biological, Karen didn't say not yet.
Not yet.
I mean, she was just like, no, but you were being given a little seed
Yeah,
of
but Debbie
possible.
said there's a chance, and she said, and I can look out for your father, and so she and I decided, let's give it a little time and let's see if she comes around and changes her mind, and we did do that.
Where
and
was
we
she
kept-
living at that time? When you,
Karen.
She's in Chicago,
Okay.
and she still is, but so I think Debbie and I talked pretty regularly for a couple of months until we realized it's probably not going to happen. And she, offered again to reach out to my father. And I was pretty hurt. I was feeling pretty sad about the whole thing then. And I was like, now that's okay. I'm good. I don't want to do that again.
As we take a minute to dig into the hurt just for a second, like I was not adopted and fostered and haven't gone through that journey. So I have zero ability to stand on this question or make sense of where I'm going with this. I have heard, however, that those that are placed for adoption sometimes have this feeling of abandonment when they go through the journey of reflection. Did you ever have that? And if yes or no, how did that resurface or surface for the first time when you were told no?
I really don't. If I did have it growing up, I didn't feel it until I think maybe until that happened. I think that was the first time I realized. Well, there's two times, but that was the first time I realized you really are on your own.
Mm.
Like you really do have to take care of yourself. Like I realized I have to take care of myself. I can't I didn't want to put myself back out there again so quickly. I did feel it, I think, for the first time then. And maybe I felt it after my mom died, I think I felt a little maybe angry at God or somebody for feeling abandoned and feeling like this is so unfair, like that your second set of parents could be taken away.
Yeah. That's heavy.
That's, I think, the normal, you go through that and then you get logical with yourself about the fact that this is real life and you pick yourself up and go forward.
And the timeline thing, right? So, what was it? Betty. Did Betty die before you met Karen?
Oh yeah, like
Okay.
I probably would not have searched. I don't know if I would have had my mom still been here, but it wasn't only the loss of my mom really that sparked me to take the action of looking. I'm grateful. My mom always told me she was okay with that if I ever wanted to. And so I was able to have peace in that when I made the decision to do it. And I talked to my brother too to make sure that he wouldn't be upset with me. And he was, Jana, I don't want to do it, but if you want to do that, go ahead.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care. I'm good. My brother's not as
Curious.
adventurous as me, though.
Okay.
You guys have a good relationship?
We do.
Where does he live?
He lives in Kansas City.
As you then continue to talk with Debbie about the possibilities of reaching out to your biological father, you left us in this storytelling with, I don't know that I want to put myself back out there. And so
Yeah, so
pick
she
us up.
was encouraging me to, maybe we try for your father. And I said, nah, I'm not even interested in that, really. I think I'm good. And then I sat on that for probably another year, maybe
Okay,
a year
so
and a
now-
half, because I do know that I was 40 when I finally met my father.
Okay. So you met your father before your mother. News alert for our listeners. It ended up happening that way. Okay. So what about that encounter. Well, maybe I should say, maybe we should pause at this point to invite our listeners to grab their favorite beverage as part of Miller Time.
I'm
Joe's
gonna
like,
do
I
it
didn't know
too.
if we were going to get to do it. So, Jana, I heard you coughing earlier. I'm like, we need to invite you in. So, what are you sipping on? Miller Time. It's that part of the show where you grab your favorite beverage, you take a deep breath. There's no advertisements here. We're just giving you a chance to catch your breath. You know, mini podcasts, this is when they cut to all the sponsors. Well, we don't have any sponsors. Although
Well, we should,
interestingly,
and it should be Advocare Spark, because it is the link to life for me every morning. I don't drink coffee, I drink Spark, and that's what I got
Okay.
going on in here.
It's funny because
Whoop,
Joe's
whoop.
wife, Leanne, is an Avocare Spark user, and turned us on to that years ago. Interesting. So you're going to work your bolt to see if you can get Avocare to come and sponsor the podcast. Is that what I just heard?
No, because I don't even like, I signed up as a distributor just so I can buy it for myself and 3 or 4 of my good friends, and I don't need another business. So now we're good. I don't want to
Okay. Okay.
take it to the next level.
Well-
I'll hand over my clients to Joe's wife when I
She's
quit.
the
If
same way.
I'll never quit. I'm going to drink it till I die.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is she
she's
the
the
same
same
way?
way. Yeah, she's the a distributor for her and myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And was for Lori and I at one point. I do have to
Well,
say
one
that.
scoop of Spark, one
Yeah.
scoop of Advocare every morning.
Yeah. I do have to say that I went to the 50th running of the Marine Corps Marathon, and Joe, stand by. That might be your opportunity. And while I was leaving the race course area, I ran into this guy from the company called Celsius. And I saw him over there, and I was like, oh, Celsius, this is cool. And I'm thirsty. Can I get one of those cans? And he gave me a can, and I told him all about my Celsius journey. And I contacted him a couple weeks later, and he said he's going to provide us some product for our Marine Corps Marathon team in 2026, which is cool. And I was like, well, I don't
That's
know if
very
I can
cool.
wait until 2026. So maybe I can just drink one of your Celsiuses on the podcast. Not that you're a
He-
sponsor of the
He
podcast,
should
but
send you a bunch to have for your podcast.
he should, right? And he did. But Joe and I talked about it, and Joe highlighted to the listeners, you need to hear this. Joe said, I don't want to go on there and sip on these things if there's not any opportunity for our listeners to get a free discount code or a discount or anything. And I was like, damn,
Good
Joe, you
point.
know, you're right. I'll just drink the ones that he sent us. And
Good
yeah,
point.
I have some for Joe, but you can't ship that stuff. So I got to wait till I see him again. But anyway, yeah, I'm drinking Celsius from the entity that's not a sponsor yet.
Maybe they will be now.
Yeah, maybe, because I'm sure they're listening. Joe, what are you sipping on here at Miller Time?
Well, so I had my Spark and Rehydrate when I first wake up. That's like within like 10 minutes of waking up, that's down and ready. And then I will have a Celsius in the afternoon. But right now I am just sipping on green tea. I don't know how I started doing this, but I've enjoyed it for a month or so. And
Well, you're
Good
gonna
for you.
love what I have for you. It's a 12-pack of Celsius no fizz green tea is the flavor, and it's yours.
no fizz.
No, it's called no fizz green tea Celsius. I haven't drank it because that ain't.
But it's carbonated or no? That's what the no.
Again, I haven't drank it. I haven't opened it. It's your 12-pack. So,
Because you actually put me on to the sticks. So I stopped buying the cans and just getting the sticks. So I avoid that carbonation. And that's been a game changer.
so I think this might be no carbonation. In fact,
No
hey babe,
fizz.
hey Lori, can you hear me? If you can you bring me a no fizz Celsius out of the fridge?
You gonna
No
crack it
fizz.
open?
Yeah, we're gonna open it right now. While we're getting the drink, Joe, is there some big thing you want to tell our listeners about for the 2026 months ahead and what they can do now?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to come to the 51st running of the Marine Corps Marathon, you can go to ainsleyangels.org and search Marine Corps Marathon there and find the link to register. Or you can also email joe@ainsleyangels.org or go to the link in the description.
Oh wow. So that's live now. Thanks, love. Is that live now, Joe?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at like 18 people already.
Wow, Jana,
in
you've been in
5
Marine
days.
Marathon. What's the chances? What's the chances of Jana coming back in October?
Well, it's not going to happen until 2028, but I will be back. But I'm
Okay.
on my 50 states marathon journey right now. And so all my travel and registration focus is on finishing I got 10 states left.
Okay. Well,
Which
that's
10?
That's awesome.
Mostly up in the Northeast. But I have Idaho, Michigan, Hawaii,
None of those are
and
in the Northeast.
the rest of them are all in the Northeast.
Well, isn't there one up in the Northeast that you can do like 4 of them in 4 days or something? Or maybe there's something. Is that
There
cheating?
is. There's a mainly marathons group that allows you to do that, but they're like 1 or 2 mile loops that you run over and over again. And really, my goal in doing the 50 states is to see each state and to do what I think is the best marathon in each state.
Mhm.
And so I don't want to just like run 2 mile loops in a state. I want to I'm
Got it.
holding out for the marathons that I want to do in each one.
What are the options in Hawaii? Just Honolulu? Is there?
No, the one I'm going to do is Maui.
Okay.
And Maui is in the summertime or January. It's in January. And they make a really big deal out of the 50 states people there. They give you a special medal and there's some special things for 50 staters. So that's why I picked that one.
Would that be the last one? Is that like the idea? Do the big Hawaii? Okay, maybe you said that.
For me, I'm saving it till the end.
Got it. I was distracted by this fizz free. So for the listeners who may be curious, remember Joe said he likes the packet, which is the powder that he pours it into regular water, and then he doesn't have to play with carbonation. So let's see what fizz free.
There was no sound of fizz.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
There wasn't. It's a peach mango green tea, fizz free. Let's see.
I just have to Google it because
Nah, dude. Yeah, no carbonation. And
Yep.
actually, wow,
Okay.
that okay. Not too bad. Not too
which
bad at
flavor
all.
is that?
It's a peach mango green tea.
Yeah.
What happens if
No.
don't?
No, I don't
Okay.
think that. And
Well-
I wouldn't drink both of those at
Okay.
like within the next hour either. I don't know if you need 400 milligrams of caffeine.
We have
like
some
that.
meetings. Well, we have our meetings today. Our
Precisely. I don't
Yeah.
need to be on the phone with you just bouncing off the walls.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Lori,
right, Jan.
come and get it.
So there you are. You're gonna meet your biological father because the powers that be reached out, did some connecting, something, and now you're gonna get in a car, bus, train, plane. I don't know what you're gonna do, but take us there. Take us to that part of this.
Okay,
wildness.
so after contemplating this for, I wouldn't say about a year and a half after after my birth mom said no, I called Debbie back at Deaconess and I said, okay, let's try for the father. Let's just see what happens. I'm ready. I was ready and I was fully prepared this time for it to go either way. And so I wrote another letter to him and Debbie called him. This is Jack. And Jack lives in Denver. And Debbie called me right back and said, oh my gosh, he's so excited.
Wow.
He can't wait to meet you.
Okay.
So it was completely different, 100% different than the first time.
When you say you contemplated for a year and a half, what does that look like? Like, is that an everyday it's on your mind type of thing?
Well, this is also kind of the same year and a half that I'm launching my business, and I've got little bitties at home. My kids are like 3 and 6, I think, at that time. And so, but it is something that's playing in the back of your mind all the time. But not something I just necessarily sat and thought about or sought out books to read about. It isn't anything.
It wasn't on the
I
to-do
think I
list on
did
the
go
fridge.
see a therapist. I did. Now that I'm thinking, this was a long time ago, but I did go for the first time in my life and see a therapist at that point, just to say, I said, I just want to make sure I'm working through all of this healthily.
Yeah.
You know,
good
the
on
loss
you.
of my
Yeah.
parents and then this, just that I'm working through it all. And she was really helpful. I probably only saw her 3 or 4 times, but she, you know, gave me some good things to think about. And
Yeah. Yeah. A
I
lot
just
of
knew
times.
if the time came, the time would come, but I wasn't stressing about it. But then it was like, one day I just decided, why not?
Yeah, there's a stigma out there about, therapy and talking to people, and at least I think there was. If you can hear my voice and you think there's a stigma about going to see a therapist or a counselor, I invite you to listen to episode 14 with Darlene Marshall and listen to the words she offers and the ideas that she offers on our podcast. Because while not a therapist, rather a psychological positive psychologist, or one who studied positive psychology, it's an opportunity for you to kind of frame things up a little bit differently and to kind of hear yourself talk through
Yeah.
what's bottled in your mind from a person who's not going to judge you. So anyway, good on you, Tanya.
It was good.
Jana, good on you. It's funny that I said Tanya right now because the adoption connection, as well as
Right.
the fact that she is a psychology major and works in the therapy space. So anyway, if Tanya listens to this episode, you can probably figure out why she was in my mind there. I digress. Okay, so you go see
So-
the therapist. You decide to do
Yeah,
this.
and then I kind of work through all the things and I get myself like prepared for whatever is gonna happen. And I didn't really feel a strong emotional tie to a father anyway, so it was a little easier, I guess, to like go into it going, he's probably gonna say no to, and that's gonna be fine if he does. So, but he didn't. His reaction was completely different. And so it was just within a few days I was making a phone call. Like she got the dates worked out, the date, set up the date that no. She gave me his email and we started emailing. And then we set up a date for a phone call. And then I found myself a month later getting on a plane and flying to Denver and meeting my birth father in the airport. And I could go on for days about him. He's amazing, and so is his family. And he had told his family that he had fathered a child, and that there was no secrecy. He had just been honest when he got married to his wife that he had had a child and that this child might pop up sometime in the future. And he felt like it was never upon him to search because he didn't feel like he had a right to do that really. But he was very open and hopeful that maybe someday he would meet this person. That's kind of what he
really
told
cool.
me.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a strong, like, admirable move to tell her, because if you would have shown up and she didn't know, that probably would have impacted that marriage to some extent.
Well, and then come to find out, not to skip to the end or whatever, but the fact that Karen never told anyone is why she said no.
Yeah, that is skipping to the end, but a good spot for that comment, because if I'm listening to your story, I'm waiting for the next foot to drop. Like, when does Karen say, you know what? Yeah, I think this is something I want to do. And now it begs the question for me: did Jack and Karen stay in touch in any way, shape, or form? Did Jack like say, hey, Karen, you really should meet this lady, or not so much?
No,
Okay.
no. But he encouraged me. Like, so they did, like, after she had me, she did go back to Bowling Green and she stayed with him in the little apartment that they were. I think she had a dorm room, but was like semi-shacking up, in his apartment or something. So anyway, she went back to Bowling Green, dropped out of school, and stayed in his apartment for a while until she got her footing. But she said, they both said to me, in recent years that they knew as soon as she came back from having had the baby that it wasn't going to work. If it was going to work, they would have stayed together and made it work. But it fizzled out, I think, shortly after that. They tried to be loving, and he tried to be loving and supportive, but it wasn't going to be a marriage or a long, they weren't going to get back together. But once I met Jack and Jack's family, and we had time over several years to talk and really get to know one another. Of course, right off the bat, he told me who my mother was, what her name was, and told me the whole story. And that was really what I wanted most of all out of the search, was to know how I got here.
Yeah.
And so that satisfied me a lot. But he still kept saying, you should try her again, Jana. You should try her again. She was such a kind person. There's no way. There had to be something going on in her life. There has to be a reason that she would have said no. Like, she's a good person. You need to try again. And he told me that for 8 years.
Okay. Wow.
And then
8 years.
this is crazy. I went to the hair salon and was getting my hair cut and talking about how Jack was encouraging me to reach out to my mother because he'd given me her name. And because I'm a recruiter and I'm a spy and I can find anybody, I had found her, and I'd even prank phone called her once, like acted like it was the wrong number.
For all our young listeners, can you explain what a prank call is and what exactly you do?
Well, the Jerky Boys has some good content for that.
Hey there.
I did a really innocent one where I just called and like acted like I had the wrong phone number. But
You called about her car warranty.
yeah. And then actually I had discovered that her daughter was selling jewelry on the internet. And so I had my friend call and ask questions about the jewelry while I listened. So there were 2 times that I got to hear my birth mom's voice before I got brave enough to try her a second time. But I went to the hair salon and I was telling my hair lady that I really want to reach out to my birth mom again. And my father's really encouraging me to do so, but I'm so scared because if I get it wrong this time, like, that's it. Like, I have to find the right approach and I have to do it right this time or it's never going to happen. And Cherie, my hair lady, said, "What do you mean? If you get it wrong, you can just try again. What do you mean you only have one chance?"
The hair lady, the real therapist.
Yes.
Seriously, I'm so grateful to her, and I always will be, because in my mind, I had one more chance. But you never really just have one more chance. And when she told me that, it took that pressure off of me, and I got brave enough to do it. And so I had written a script. As a salesperson and a recruiter, I've long learned to write scripts. And I had my script in front of me and I dialed her number and I thought I'll leave a voicemail because she's obviously not going to pick up because it's not going to be a number she knows. But she picked up. So then I had to read my script with a live person. And it was really scary, but I got through it. And at that time, unbeknownst to me, no one in her life knew, other than her mother, who she'd written the letter to, not her sister. She did tell me later that her mother had told her older brother, but they had never told the other sister, and no one had ever spoken of it. It was deep, dark family secret. So she got married. She had 4 children of her own, and this secret stayed in her and never was shared with anyone else. And so that's why she said no. But the day that I called her and she picked up, she was in the kitchen with her daughter. So she acted like I was a solicitor. And she spoke to me in a very professional tone. But she didn't say, "No, don't ever call me back." She said something along the lines, after I read my script, about how I don't want anything, I don't need anything, I just want to meet you. You know, if you want a relationship, great. If not, we'll just meet and go our separate ways. That's all. You know, I told her in the letter that I had met Jack and that I knew the story and that I loved her and was grateful to her and all those things. And then there was silence. And she said, "Oh, so could I give you a call back?"
Okay.
I was like, "Someone in the room that you can't talk to me right now?" "Yes, that's true." "Okay, sure." I said, "I'll give you my number. But please, if you're not going to call me back, tell me now, because I don't want to wait for your call and then not get it." And
Wow.
"Oh, no, I'll call you back."
I
Okay.
love that you said that to her. Like, to have the foresight, the courage to say, like, don't hang me out here. Like, here's my number, but you better call it. And if you're not going to, tell me now.
Because
Like,
I realized before I hung up that phone that I did not want to wait for a call that wasn't,
Yeah.
you know.
that's huge.
How long-
That's
I'm
a
how
good
really
long
one.
glad
did
I
you have
said
to
that
wait?
too, because
Yeah.
it took her a few days. What'd you say, Joe?
How long till she called back?
Like 3 days.
It was a long 3 days, huh?
Tick, tock, tick.
And I was thinking, "Oh, you know," but
Yeah.
she
Wow.
did.
Okay,
She
take us
just
to
had
that.
to work through it
Take us to that.
herself.
Like, take us to that. The phone rings and you see the number and it pops up in your phone as something, because I know you saved the number or whatever. Whoa, when was this? What year? How old were you?
So
What were you
you're
doing?
not this wasn't 5 years ago with caller ID and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking I don't remember that part, but I think I was definitely on a landline.
Okay.
I think I don't remember. I don't
Okay.
remember the moment of getting that call,
Wow.
but I do remember having that call
Hmm.
and her sharing with me that she had been married for 30 years and had 4 kids and none of them knew, and that it was terrifying to her
Hmm.
to tell them because she didn't know how they would react.
Yeah.
And I said, it's okay. You don't have to tell them. Like, this can be our only conversation if you want. Like, we don't have to do anything. I tried to be very, I think my recruiting experience really helped me navigate the process because, if somebody doesn't want to be called or if it's not the right time, you have to give them that. You can't force the timing when you're trying to recruit someone for a job.
Yeah.
And you can't force it in a relationship at all, and so it just moved slowly. We started emailing each other and we exchanged photos through email. I don't think we could text photos then,
Depends on what
not
device you
easily
had, but
anyway.
yeah.
I think I might have had a flip phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think those are coming back. So you have this conversation, and then fast forward the clock, like you end up going up there to meet in Chicago. Now, when you went the first time, did you meet just her, or was it a whole big thing? Everybody was there. How did that happen?
Well, I got to meet all 3 of my sisters and her husband, Don, all in that trip. I got to see the town that my half siblings grew up in and their school. It was not overwhelming. It wasn't a lot of family. It was just that immediate family. And my brother I met later because he already was living in LA at that time. But um, I've never met, like, everyone in that family is so different, like so different from Jack's family. The whole experience was so different, like between the two, but it's evolved, it started out differently. So of course it just evolves. But at this point, I think we celebrate what's called our Janiversary every year. And
That's
I
cool.
think that we just had a 20-year Janiversary with Jack and Judy and his family, where I have 2 half siblings as well. And then we just had like a 12-year Janiversary with Karen and her family.
Man. So that's if I'm counting, you have 7 siblings.
I went from having 1 sibling to having 7 now.
Wow. That's and all of them, I pray, I don't know how to pray on it, but I hope they are accepting of you.
They're all just wonderful. I mean, I'm so lucky. I say, I used to think I was really unlucky because my parents were taken away, the second set of parents were taken away. But how lucky am I to then roll around and get to be the daughter of 2 other really amazing people who it wasn't the right time then, but it's the right time now. And I didn't tell you, Karen told her husband and all of her kids, obviously, and from the very onset, they were accepting and open-armed about the whole thing. But it was just her fears that she'd built up inside that she now looks back and says that was, so dumb. Like, I should have known that they would have understood and been okay with it.
I think it's obviously, I think that it's human perhaps for Karen to feel the way she did about not wanting to rock the boat, especially after so much time had gone by and she just held this thing. But at the same time, the fact that her husband and her kids like rallied behind her and said it's okay and we support this, I think is a testament to them knowing who she is as a person.
Absolutely.
and you introduced us to Karen very early, an hour ago in this conversation, and we talked about the resilience and the courage. And then what's neat about it is how Jack was there for her back then with the letters and the communication as she was, about to give birth, and how Jack still was there for both of you years later. I don't know,
He
I don't know
wanted
what
that
happened emotionally there. It was just
reconciliation
a
to
powerful
happen.
moment there.
I think he wanted that for me
Yeah.
most of all, because he then, now he knows me and loves me, and he wants me to see that I really do have a cool mom too, and he wanted that for her too, unknowingly. That it's funny because I think it was 2 years after I met Karen, she said, she said, I lost 30 pounds before I met you, and like some other significant pounds after we met. She said it was literally a weight off of my shoulders that I didn't know was there.
What's the relationship like between Jack and Karen now?
Well, it's pretty cool. When I turned 50, I had only known Karen for 2 years, but I threw a big party for myself. You guys should do that too when you turn 50. I'm so glad I did that. But I had the opportunity to invite both of my birth parents to Oklahoma at the same time. Jack and Judy got to meet Karen and Dawn, and we literally, all of us sat around the table at the same time. And that was one of the most mind-blowing moments of my entire life, to have them in the same room. And they were so good to one another, and their spouses were too. And it's just together we shall. They care about me. They both care about me as a person. And they loved each other back in the day, but that was so long ago. And they just made that moment like so beautiful.
Yeah, and that's a happy ending story for sure.
It really is. I love to tell it for that reason, because not all of the adoption stories turn out as happy as mine. And also, it wasn't smooth the whole way. So if people are going through that and they're on those rough patches, you just keep going. And you don't only have one chance to do it right. You have
That's right. You said
as
earlier,
many as it takes.
You never really have just one more chance. And then you just paraphrased it again. I think that's the lesson of the story, is that while we have heard many horror stories, we've heard some positive stories about this reuniting thing. And that there's a lot of people out there in the world, as we celebrated adoption at the beginning of the show by talking about the proclamations and the awareness for the process. Therefore, there are a lot of people that have been a product of being placed for adoption. And I can only imagine that some of them go through these same reflections that you did. And maybe right now, maybe there's one listening who's like, I don't want to put myself out there. And if Jana had a message for us today, it's about finding the courage to do it, because why not?
Put yourself out there. Even if it doesn't go right, you're still going to bounce back from it and learn from it. And I sure did. I learned so much, and I gained, you talked about that abandonment complex that does seem to be an issue that adopted people deal with. Well, what better thing could have happened to me than to go through this full circle and then end up at the end of it with really 4 sets, or I guess it's 3 sets of amazing parents.
Yeah, great.
That at the end of the day, you can stand on your own feet and get through it, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, with your family, whatever the math is, right, quadrupling or tripling as you met more of the half sisters and nieces and nephews and all that. I mean, you share this with them, this might be our highest rated episode just with them listening.
Yeah, I do need to tell them that we can get some things here.
Yeah. Well,
You're right.
This will be in all the places that you can find a podcast. And if you're listening to this, you can also watch it on our Ainsley's Angels YouTube channel. It's there for those who might need closed captioning, but also sometimes it's cool to watch a conversation. Jana, this has been fun, really fun. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen and start the year off with just a really special story. Now, where can people, meet you, see you, spend time with you? I know you live in Oklahoma and you're wearing a Route 66 marathon shirt. Like, what do you do in your spare time? Because I never told the world what you do and how we know you.
The real jobs. Well, I've mentioned recruiting a few times, and so I have for 22 years had my own firm, Ridgemont Resources, that I contract with hospitals and pharmacies all over the country to recruit the pharmacy professionals that they need, the talent that they need for their team. So I focus in the pharmacy space for recruitment, and then I'm also a wife. I've been married for almost 35 years to Mike, and we have our 2 kids, and we live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I've been the ambassador for Ainsley's Angels since 2018. Started up with Jarrett's help in Tulsa, and we have a thriving Ainsley's Angels family in Tulsa that has enriched my life enormously.
You've built quite the ambassadorship there. I've had a chance to visit once. Hopefully, I can see you again in 2026. We're talking about some possibilities there. But it's really, really neat when I get a chance to go and spend time with those ambassadorships and the Ainsley Angels and Tulsa family that you've built and how it's just kind of grown and grown. And the relationships that you've been able to connect with some of the other race directors and the way that they've really just leaned into supporting the efforts. What is the biggest race of the year if we have a runner listening that really wants to come to Tulsa and be part of the whole experience? What are the big ones? What should they try to put on their calendar?
Well, I'd have to say Route 66, which is what I've got on my jacket here. Route 66 is the biggest marathon that Tulsa has and we have so much wonderful participation. We started a thing a couple years ago where we would build relay teams, and that would enable more of our riders to get to actually do a full marathon. And so that's the one. I'd say come do a leg of the relay with us, or do the whole marathon pushing somebody, or the half. That's the one that brings the most energy and would be the most exciting race for people to come to Tulsa for.
And you heard it right. You can do a marathon as part of a relay team, and it's approved by the race director. It's such a cool concept. I love that. Joe,
when is that one?
It's always the Saturday or the Sunday before Thanksgiving toward the end of November.
So everyone's got time to make it for
happening.
26.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. Plenty of time to prepare for that. And there's no real cap, I would say. The race directors have been pretty accommodating when it comes to, like, if you did try to attract people from across the country, from the Ainsley Angels family to come, is there any limitations? Or are we inclusion without limits with this event?
We are. Like the Route 66 team welcomes all of our riders at no cost at all. And then they did, create a discounted fee for us for the relay team. So, and we just fundraise all year so that we can afford to pay for those relay teams and provide that opportunity for our riders to do the full. Because we do 5Ks every month and they're awesome, but to be able to complete a full is, it's a whole nother level. And so it's pretty cool to be able to do that. And it's hard to find enough, as you know, Joe, to find people that can push somebody for a whole marathon. That's a lot. But when we came to do the Marine Corps, we brought a small group of runners from Tulsa and we took turns. If you remember, we had 5 runners pushing 2 chairs in the Marine Corps, and we just rotated throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, had some sweet outfits
doing 1
too,
minute
right?
or 1.5 minute intervals.
Yeah, they had some sweet outfits. Is that what you said, Joe?
Yeah, you guys were red, white, and blued out, I think, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately,
we had so much fun. We still talk about it all the time and want to come back and do it again.
Yeah, no, we'll look forward to having y'all. Of course, the way that you've described it and how you executed Marine Marathon, like, that's ultimately the whole idea of where there's a will, there's a way. And together we shall accomplish the mission. there's a lot of elements to accomplishing a marathon that sometimes you don't really think about until you're at mile 20 and the bear's jumping on your back. And that together we shall component, whether it's the rider pushing you or the runner that just so happens to show up at the right time to give you that little extra bit of help. Really, really cool. So Jana, this has been cool, like I said, and I'm so grateful for your vulnerability in sharing the story. I actually think I had my eyes well up with emotion more than you did, and you were telling the story. So there's something powerful about the story that you just told. Joe, do you have any save rounds, alibis, closing comments before we pass it over to Jana to have the final word?
No, great story. I'm happy that it worked out for you because, I think we mentioned it. It's usually not the norm, I would say, for that reunion thing. And I mean, last week, Rooster was like, "Did you know Jana's adopted? We should have her on the podcast." And I was like, okay, that's all I knew coming into this. So, yeah. So, I mean, I definitely learned a lot, and I'm very happy for you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you. It really has been a blessing to to be able to find your original family at this stage in life, and to find out they're just really cool people too that you can intertwine into your life. I think it's been great for me and for my kids.
As you close out the episode with us, Jana, but what do you want to leave the listeners with as they prepare to carry on with the plan of the day?
Just at the heart of everything that we've talked about today is that to take the chance that things could go right, even though they might go wrong. Take the chance, because you can always try again. And sometimes things take years to work themselves out. And that was definitely the case in my life. And with this situation with my biological parents, it's only made me grow. Like, even the painful parts, when I look back on them, I grew so much. And so I would want to tell people to go for it. If there's something scary that you've thought about doing, do it.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.